that hundreds of thousands of dollars had been seized from my business bank account. And when I read it, of course, I presumed it was a mistake. Why would Wells Fargo come and take money? And when I saw the message, I responded by calling Wells Fargo. They said, no, sir, this is legitimate. I'm sorry, this money is gone. And not only is it gone, any money that comes into this account, we will continue to take by way of this court order. So I was very concerned, of course, and as they said that to me, more money was coming in because on average we have maybe $50,000 to $100,000 a month in revenues. So as quickly as money was coming into the account, Wells Fargo would take that money too. So from there, I reached out to my business partner, Michael Santos, who was in Italy for a month. I said, what do you suggest we do here? This is very, very bad. And he said, let's respond appropriately. I reached out to some lawyers like Peter Harden, Mark Worksman, Diane Bass, colleagues of mine, to say there must be some mistake, but Wells Fargo thinks it's absolutely legitimate. From there, I went directly into Wells Fargo, who looked at me like I was a criminal, like I had just gotten out of prison as I celebrate my 15-year anniversary of my release from federal prison. They looked at me like a criminal. Why would someone take your money? This must be legitimate. And upon further review, the state of Connecticut made a terrible mistake and inappropriately seized money from the wrong account. They apologized, returned the money. It took 72 hours. And as you would imagine, during that window, with a wife and young children, thinking every dollar I had in my business account was gone, unable to pay my team, money that was coming in from clients, work that we had done was immediately being seized, I thought back to how I would have responded before I went to federal prison. And through that turmoil and trauma and stress of thinking all of that money had been stolen, I thought what had remained: my health, my family, my wife, my young children, my business partner, Michael Santos in Italy, who said, whatever comes our way, we will find a way to get through it. And I was so grateful to have gotten the money back, but I felt like I had dignity in that moment. And that's what I want all of you to experience as you go through crisis, because after you get sentenced and go to prison, you will have already endured so much. You sort of become conditioned. You become conditioned to fallout and pain. And I want you to focus on what remains. So as I share that story and overcoming it and thankfully getting the money back, I want you to assess your own life and continue to focus on what remains rather than what you've lost. Now, 15 years out of federal prison later, I do want to convey some insights, some lessons with you, and I knocked them out as I'm getting ready to have dinner with some close friends here in Westlake. That first day, 15 years ago at this moment, I did not enjoy it. I did not enjoy it. I was miserable. I pled guilty. I had been sentenced. I went to prison. I worked hard every single day to come home, and now I'm free. I was back in Calabasas at the time, and I didn't enjoy that first day of freedom. It was awful. I'm like, I've been out of the halfway house now for 2 hours. It's 3 hours later. Why don't I have more clients? What's happening? I wrote this book. Nobody's calling me. No, I'm not interested in eating bad food. No, I'm not interested in sex. I got to pay $500,000 in restitution. I got so much to do. I got to build this business. I didn't enjoy it. So I know when you come home from prison, you have so much that you have to do. I get it. I understand it. Enjoy the day. You've enjoyed so much. You're free. Learn from my dumbass who was so anal and obsessed about building and growing and making money and finding clients and paying that damn restitution that hung on me. Enjoy the day. Another thing that I learned over the last 15 years, and I really attribute any success that I've had to this motto: just try, man. And I ain't Anthony Robbins here. I served a measly year in a minimum security camp. It was the easiest part of the process. Just freaking try. Do crazy things like you should do in prison. Run a marathon, write a book, write a blog, write a love letter like I did in prison. My eventual wife, Sandra, eventually read that blog. Just try. Do crazy things. Please go speak in front of large groups. Go ask the woman out. Cold call the lawyer. Ask someone that blew you off a long time ago because you went to prison for coffee or lunch. Just try things. I loved getting in front of 1,000 people without notes and a PowerPoint and just talking. What was the feedback? Good, bad, a little rambling, too much excuses, accepts too much responsibility, too funny, too dramatic, too serious, not serious enough. You're going to hear everything, man. Just try, because by trying, you learn and then you implement. Another thing I wrote down here, man, there are going to be some tough days when you come home, okay? There's going to be some tough days as I'm walking through the woods here in Westlake. There's going to be some really tough days. But you know what I've learned? There are tough days whether you go to prison or not, but you've already endured so much. They should prepare you. Now, it was harder for me because even before I went to federal prison in the prior 3 years, I was doing very well selling real estate in Calabasas. And I joked back then, all you needed was a pulse to make money in real estate. I tend to underestimate some of my achievements, but I had made hundreds of thousands of dollars annually before I went to prison. Then you come home, you're starting over from zero. It's humbling, it's hard, especially because I picked up phones for 3 months while in the halfway house. My point is, there will be some hard days, find value in it. Do the work regardless, because I assure you, 15 years later, it pays off. The work that I did, my goodness, August 16th of 2009, as miserable as I was that day, I didn't enjoy it. The work I did that day and the next day, cold walking into law offices in downtown Los Angeles, have led to business that sustained my family. I cold walked into Mark Worksman's office, a law office in downtown Los Angeles. Besides being good friends and a mentor, that was $1 million cold walk, because that's how much business he sent my company over the last 15 years, because we do great work. And we're proud of the work that we do. Just freaking try. Another thing, number 4, you are going to make tons of mistakes. And they're going to continue to make mistakes. I made a mistake this morning during a live interview I did. I wasn't a mistake. I didn't convey a salient point that I was supposed to convey about Matthew Perry's tragic death and the people they had invited, full disclosure, were involved in that case. After the interview, I said, I had one point to convey. I didn't convey it. Forgive yourself, move on. You are going to make tons of mistakes. Do it with dignity. But if you learn from the mistake, as I did, speaking too long, rambling, not following up appropriately, mistakes that I have made, I forgive myself, but they always make me better. If you are not trying, you are after perfect, and I embraced early. Done is better than perfect, people. You gotta just keep going. Another thing that I did well, and I really learned this from Michael Santos, my mentor and partner, as I walk strangely through a lot as I approach a soccer field here 15 years after my release from prison. Michael really encouraged me to think not so much about transactions. What can you make today? What can you make today? About transformation, creating systems and teams and services that really change the way people think, the way they go through this wretched criminal justice system. And he once said to me, people may be obsessed with the shortest sentence and they may get it, but what does the rest of their life look like? Can they create a 5 and 10 year plan and then hold themselves accountable? And at the end of this video, I'm going to share the biggest takeaway with you over the last 15 years and what I've learned. And I was naive, actually. So if you hang around for just a few more minutes, I'll share that with you. But I began to make decisions very early on. Sun is blinding here. I am getting so much sun. I was just in Sun River, Oregon with my family for a week. I went canoeing, which, if you think of the movie Clark Griswold, what was the movie Vacation? That's what I looked like when I was checking into the canoe. He encouraged me to think from the perspective of 5 and 10 years out. So then you're not desperate. Then you're not begging for business that I wanted but didn't need. I'm not chasing transactions. I was always able to work with people who I thought was aligned with our interests, not offering guarantees, predicting the future, suggesting we could change the past, wanting to work with people willing to do the work, willing to hold people, including us they hire, accountable, not falling for buzzwords and cliches and platitudes. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That's all nonsense and happy talk. I always made decisions thinking, what do I want to look like in 10 years and 15 years? Still feel fairly fit, losing hair, married happily with young kids, building a business and a team. I always wanted that, and I put myself in that role even though I didn't have it. But it enabled me to make good long-term decisions rather than acting in the moment or exploiting vulnerabilities, as some people do. I was exploited as a defendant. I write about that a great deal in blogs, videos, and on the new updated White Collar Advice site. Act right now the way you want your life to be in 15 or 20 years. You'll make more principled decisions. Another thing I did very well, and I'm tough on myself, I never took the bait. Right? It's very easy. I signed a plea agreement I didn't agree with. Okay, you signed it. Own it. Spoke with several people today who don't agree with their plea agreements. The problem is they're doing very little to actually influence that plea agreement. So they're going to sign it. They're going to disagree with it. They're going to blame their lawyer and say, my lawyer is simply an order taker from the U.S. government or the federal prosecutor or state attorney. You got to own that you're not doing more to influence that process. Own it. It's your life, your future, your case. Do what you like. I advise people to make decisions from the perspectives of stakeholders. What does a judge think? A prosecutor think? Create a message. People know to do it. They don't. Own that. But even if you sign it, you want the best sentence, you gotta own it, acknowledge it. But here's mistakes that people make when they come home from prison. They begin to take the bait. Hey dude, I heard you went to prison, kind of the fall guy. Yeah, I wanted to go to trial. I was gonna go to trial, but nobody wins. 98% of people lose. Over the last 15 years, I've lost a lot of that prison muscle. My wife says, so the arm is starting to get sore here. yeah, I was gonna, take that. I took the deal. I had to, probably could have won, but I took the deal and I got the 18 months. If I lose, probably get 5 years at trial. In retrospect, I know if I went to trial, I would have won. But what happens is you take the bait. You get away from accepting responsibility and acknowledging what you did, because the truth is, the more you can acknowledge you did if you made bad choices, the more you can then acknowledge what you did not do. And that's consistent with what Judge Stephen Boo told Michael Santos in a YouTube video. Tell me what you did, own it. I'm then more inclined to believe what you didn't do. I'm not telling you to tell people to do things you didn't do, but if you pled guilty, you pled guilty. Own it for the rest of your life. Create a coherent message that shows, yes, I made bad decisions. I own it. Here's what I am now doing because of that felony conviction. This conviction is the biggest asset in my life. My biggest professional asset is these kids kick balls into a net, wonder why the hell I'm yelling, because 15 years later, I'm home and you're all going to be home. Are you going to be successful? What is success for you? Is it just getting the shortest sentence and falling for the buzzwords? Obsessed about getting more halfway house time, then you get to the halfway house, your job isn't approved, and you wish that you were back in prison? It's coming. I know. People that mocked and made fun of me in prison for writing that blog and book with Michael, who said, my PO ain't never going to approve my job working with felons. It was approved day one. I'm sure glad I learned to say no, to think as an individual, to no longer be a people pleaser, to make decisions from a position of strength and principle. Even if y'all think I'm quirky, odd, and weird, I don't care. I sustain my family. We help with wonderful people willing to take action, growing a business. And this all started with decisions I began to make in prison and carried through 15 years ago today, starting the 16th of August, 2009, when I started 3 years of supervision. Do your own thing, live your own life. Do not take the damn bait. Another thing, it's a different life. Now, it's a little more odd for me because I've chosen to build a career around my brief experience through the system and working with Michael, who served 26 years. But there ain't no way to spin, man. It's a different life. Not just talking about prison, the fact that we went to prison. I mean, who in a million years ever imagined that you'd be standing for count in federal prison, right? That you'd have a DOJ press release, that you would endure this pain and shame, that you'd be hiring lawyers, proffering, cooperating, pleading guilty, getting sentenced, going to the hole if you took an egg out of the chow hall without permission. It is a different life. Now, I was naive thinking that by writing this blog and book, when I came home, people would see me as some author. Oh, you wrote a book in prison? Yeah, it was a big deal. You wrote this book with Michael and really wanted to help people understand what it was like to go through it. At the end of the day, I was just some dude out of jail who served time for fraud, a year, and I wanted to find some meaning through this experience. These people saw me as a dude out of jail, but it is a different life. So you can run from it. You can pretend that it's not happening. You can try to suppress releases and be inauthentic, or you can own it and create a new record on top of it. And you can recognize that no one can work harder than you. No one can take the lead like you. And in so doing, you actually improve your legacy. You prove that as a human being, yes, I made a bad decision, but look what I've done on top of it, as odd as that may be. But I will never dispute, I live an odd life. My 10-year-old daughter, Alyssa, knows more about white-collar crime just because during COVID she was home and she would hear me while I was in my office. She asked some of the most poignant questions. I can almost see how Tiger Woods became Tiger Woods because she knows so much about what I do in this very odd life. She should either take over the business or become a defense attorney. It is an odd life. A few more things here as we wrap up. Right arm is very, very sore. You're going to get a lot of haters if you're successful. Success brings haters, man, and we have them. You look at stuff that we sell, things that we produce, all created by Michael Santos, who served 26 consecutive years in federal prison. Narratives, release plans, that's now ubiquitous in the Bureau of Prisons. Someone told me not to use the word ubiquitous. It sounds too hoity-toity, like I went to USC. That's everywhere in the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Of course, our Preparing for Success After Prison course is a First Step Act approved program in the BOP, all thanks to Michael's 26 years in prison. And yes, there are people that create mastermind courses with our team that influences 1 million people in prisons and jails. So people try to steal our stuff. And if you were to ever speak with Michael and ask him about it, you know what he'd say? I don't care. I'm authentic, I'm real. People who do their due diligence and vet will see we're not asking them to do what we haven't done and documented. If some people fall for charlatans and shysters, that's their choice that they didn't do due diligence. They need to own and acknowledge that. But the more successful you become, and I really felt that in 2009 when our company went viral with the Post and CNN for the Varsity Blues case, people went crazy, especially people who served longer than me in prison, who didn't feel someone who served such a short sentence should be getting such notoriety. And my response was, who cares how long you served in prison? People don't care about that. You get them closer to what they want: success, living with dignity, rebuilding. Yes, a shorter sentence. Yes, an earlier release, but not ensuring this experience defines the rest of their life. And now 15 years later, I can tell you this experience does not define the rest of my life. And if it were, it's only in a good way because of the lessons that I learned, like having the state of Connecticut improperly, illegally steal hundreds of thousands of dollars from my business account and respond with dignity and a plan. And despite waiting for 72 hours with stress, wondering if I would ever get the money back, still being a husband and a father and going for a run and taking my daughter to a baseball game. I'm going to live my life because I'm focused about what's left. It's the best part about going to prison. I do it all over again because of the lessons that I learned. But as you become more successful and make money and grow business, there are going to be people that don't like you. Embrace it, own it. I choose not to pay attention to them, but I know they're watching. I know they're coming. As I wrote in the epilogue of Lessons from Prison with Michael, more to come. Number 9 and 10, wrapping up here. It's easier said than done, man. I'll tell you that right now. I was naive in prison, writing this daily blog, and I was getting like some weeks 20 letters a week in prison from people reading the blog. I'm like, this is gonna be great. We have like 20, 30 clients a month, and despite averaging a client to 2 a day right now, it was very difficult when I came home. As a white Jewish kid from the hills of Encino, of course, I loved every rapper, including Eazy-E, who sang a song that said, easier said than done. I was naive, thinking how easy the transition would be. I presumed my phone would be blowing up. I remember doing Fox News for the first time, and I'm like, Fox News, I'll get 9 calls tomorrow. I got 0. Easier said than done. It really does require the incremental building, this tortoise and the hare day by day. I love this analogy by the philosopher Jacob Heiss, if I got that wrong, forgive me, who said, you chisel away at a rock and it breaks on the 101st hit, but it wasn't the 101st hit or the 100th hit that broke it. It was everything in between. It's really true. Easier said than done. It really is hard work to build, to recalibrate, to grow a team, to make money, to overcome. It is years in the making. I'm 15 years in, and 15 years later, well, I want to retire in 10 years and maybe sell this business or give this business to my daughter or someone on our team who's earned it. Easier said than done. One more thing here. I'm going to close with how I opened. I want all of you, as you go through the process, to express such gratitude to your friends and family. I'm going to walk back now. Hey man, good run. Nice work. Express gratitude to your friends and family. They love you, they support you, they're standing alongside you. Don't obsess over those that forgot about you, that ignored you, that took pleasure in your pain. Right? Express gratitude. You're home. You've endured so much. Thank them. Nurture that relationship. Tell them what you've learned, how you're becoming better. Till this day, on my way here, I texted my mom and I said, I love you so much. I can't believe that you stood along. And she's like, of course I'm going to stand alongside you. You're my youngest son. If you have that, prove worthy of it. Thank them. If you're watching this and you're going to prison, thank them. Tell them how you're going to prove worthy of it. If you're getting ready to plead guilty, let your family know how you're going to mitigate and take the lead to contribute and give back. Change the government's one-sided version of events. Emerge from this with dignity and a plan. Michael likes to share this analogy from Seth Godin, the marketer. He writes about the purple cow. You're driving down the road, you see 100 cows, you notice that purple cow that stands out. Be the purple cow, stand out, express your gratitude. They love you, they need you, they support you. Prove worthy of it. And this is how I'll wrap up my 15-year anniversary of going to federal prison. My biggest takeaway. I presumed when I came home, and even over the first few years, that when people would see like the interviews that Michael Santos did with federal judges, Judge Boo, Judge Bennett. I've spoken on stage with myriad judges, including Judge Pearson. Or when people see the interviews with like Chris Maloney, the former chief of probation, I was very naive in presuming that when someone's heard what a judge told them to do, they would do it, right? So like a judge says, we know you need a lawyer, but we tend to dismiss what a lawyer says because the lawyer's paid to say it. Therefore, I want to hear from the defendant. So I presumed foolishly that when a defendant would hear that, they would immediately take action. And I would be surprised at people who would hear it and say, well, maybe that doesn't apply to me. Or that sounds good, I'm going to kind of get around to it. And I was so stunned and shocked, but I am no longer stunned and shocked. We know that we should eat healthy. Many people don't, including me at times. We know that we should exercise. Many people don't, including me at times. We know we shouldn't drink to an excess. I don't really drink to an excess if I said that twice. The point is, we all know that we should do things that are healthy and good, including mitigating and demonstrating through your own efforts and actions why you're a candidate for leniency and more liberty. But here's what I've learned over 15 years. Just because you know that you should do it, and just because federal judges we have interviewed who have sentenced thousands of defendants have told you should do it, and just because I share lessons from 1,500 sentencing hearings, and just because I share lessons from the 26 consecutive years my partner Michael Santos served, and every lesson we teach stems from his 26-year experience, just because we share all the evidence and data and case studies and remarks from subject matter experts, some of you still ain't gonna do it. And that's the biggest takeaway. That's the biggest shock. Even earlier today, I spoke with someone very kind, very nice. They know exactly what they need to do, exactly what can improve their outcome. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna think a little bit more about it. And they're gonna pay the price when they see that plea agreement. They're gonna pay the price when they learn the U.S. attorney is working full-time with our tax dollar to prepare for sentencing while they're in la-la land thinking their lawyer has it all figured out. That's the biggest takeaway. Just because you know what to do doesn't mean you're going to do it. There it is, people. 15 years I've been home from prison. Less hair, still fairly fit, married with 2 young children. Grateful. Grateful. Lessons learned in federal prison. I want all of you to experience that same. You got to find meaning through the experience. You got to be odd. You got to be weird. You got to try crazy new things, embarrass yourself, fail. What's the worst that could happen? Not a damn thing. In fact, the first 3 years that I was home from prison, when I would take the stage, whether it was in front of 5,500 or at some points 10,000 people getting paid as much as 10 grand a pop, I'd say, even if this goes terribly wrong, they can't send me back to prison. Kind of a nice perspective and good way to think about it. If you'd like to speak with our team, we're here every Monday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. We host a weekly webinar where no pitching, no selling. We're just going to answer questions. We're going to teach. We're going to tell you what to do, whether you do it with our team or you do it on your own. And that's the last thing I'll say. When Paul Bertrand, the FBI agent, shows up at your home, or an FBI agent shows up at your home, they're in the bottom of the 8th inning. The work is done. The question is, what do you do to mitigate? Some will do it, some won't. I hope you do. I'm so grateful that all of you are in the White Collar Advice community and you've listened to this 15-year anniversary of my release from federal prison. That's a wrap. How do I end this thing?